today we're on the longest, the highest and the deepest canal tunnel on the UK canal network. Look at this is amazing. Today's very exciting. We're at Standedge Tunnel and we're going to go down with CRT today on a boat through the tunnel. Now this is a guided tour and a great opportunity to be able to explore through the tunnel. And here's the entrance. You can see some canoes just down in here. So there's a couple of people coming down through here. You've got Boat Time and Narrowboat Pirate. And I think Martin Zero is going to be here as well. But there we go. That's the tunnel. Oh, there's loads of canoes in there. There might be quite a few more people coming then. It's going to be quite a cool day, I think. I say cool, I mean literally. It's a lot colder in the tunnels, so we're actually having to wear layers because it'll be about 4 degrees in there. It's probably going to be 20 degrees outside today. And she's arrived. This is the boat that's going to take us through. It has a roof, so there are areas in this tunnel where there are waterfalls and stuff, and that will stop us from getting too wet, although I'm probably going to try and stand just outside here. I'm going through. Narrowboat Pirate is on this boat as well, and Martin Zero's here and others are going on canoes behind us. We've got Boat Time, we're going to be on there as well, which is going to be good.
Hi, I'm Tony, I'm a volunteer here, training up to be a boat master, but currently a deckhand. We want to take the trip boat, we call it. This is the glass topped with seating in. That's a separate boat to this part, which is the tug part. It's a bit like reversing an articulated lorry up a country lane, very narrow country lane. It's a bit tricky, so we're going to have 2 drivers today, one at the front and one at the back. So there's motors here at the back, which are electric, and they basically point the propellers in the direction you want it to go. And the same thing at the front.
So a little bit of a background here. So there are actually 4 tunnels here. There's the original canal tunnel, which was built and is the highest point on the canal network. It is the summit of the Huddersfield Narrow Canal. This is also the deepest canal tunnel in the country and also the longest. So it's quite an impressive feat of engineering for when it was built. You've also got 2 single tunnels on one side, which are the old railway tunnels. These were built to allow the railway to come through. Now originally they built 1 single bore tunnel, then they needed to expand it. They built a second single bore tunnel, and then much later on they built a 3rd railway tunnel, which is still the active tunnel, and that's a twin bore tunnel. And what you can see on this drone footage is the railway on the left hand side, which is active. You can't quite see the 2 abandoned rail tunnels, but they are still used. Now they're used as a point of safety, so Network Rail use it as access, and also the Canal and RIver Trust have permission to use it to be able to access the tunnel if there's a problem with the boats. And now we're explaining the systems in place so they know where the boats are in the tunnel. You can see just on top of the boat here, they've got this little antenna, and through the tunnel they've got those all the way through, and that communicates back with a control centre down here somewhere. I'm not too sure where it is, and that tells you that they're moving. If they don't pick up on the way through, you know there's a problem. And those 2 tunnels, which are the smaller old railway tunnels, so if there's a problem they can come down through there and come down through the adits, which are in the sides of the tunnel, which is what was used when the construction of the railway tunnels happened, and they can get into the boats and rescue you. They know where you are by the points that you've not responded to, so you'll have gone through one and then not responded on the second. So here we go, we're on the boat now, ready to go. So it's pretty cool. So they do direct from the front here and they direct from the back, like that chap said. I think it's been driven from the front today, but I could be wrong. And here is the longest, deepest, highest canal tunnel in the world. So here we go. It's very quiet, this. It's an electric engine on these, isn't it?
Because the canal and into the tunnel sort of bends to the left here, so we have to steer in from the rear. If I steered in from the front, we get the front end in, and the back end would bash on that side.
Oh, okay.
So we steer just into the tunnel, then I should take over at the front.
Because it's this tunnel was built bent, wasn't it, but by accident. When Talford took over the construction of it, there we go, there's a bump. When he took over, they found that it had been dug at slightly different angles from each end. So is there like a little kink in the middle somewhere?
There's kinks all the way along, mainly because the people who were digging the tunnel got paid by how much spoil they took out.
Okay.
So if they found the sandstone was a bit softer on one side. They did that way until the tunnel engineer had come, oh no, straighten up lads, come on, straighten up.
So, we're now into Standedge Tunnel. Standedge Tunnel itself, it is 3¼ miles long. It's actually 640 feet above sea level, so this is the highest point of any canal system in the United Kingdom at 640 feet. And then of course it's 638 feet deep, but that's not the depth of water, that's how much rock there is above our heads. The tunnel, when did it start? Well, it started in 1794. How did it start? Well, basically what happened was in the late 1700s, people were beginning to manufacture goods and they wanted to sell them to the towns and cities. Well, of course, the only transportation that would be available in those days would be by horse and cart on unmade roads. Any goods that are liable to perish or get broken would have happened. So, it was decided that canals were to be the answer. And they started building canals all over the country. Now local mill owners around this area, Oldham, Rochdale, Halifax, Bradford, Huddersfield, they all got together and said, look, why can't we have a tunnel that goes through the Pennines? Because of course if they wanted to deal between east and west and east, what would happen was the goods were taken by horse and cart to the foot of the Pennines, and then these would have to be offloaded onto pack horses and taken over the top. So it was all time consuming. So they asked if it was possible to have a tunnel built. They were quite wealthy mill owners, so they went down to London and they got an Act of Parliament, and this was passed in 1794 for a provision for the tunnel to be constructed. They needed someone to oversee the work, and that fell to a gentleman called Benjamin Outram. Now he lived in Louth in Lincolnshire. Well, of course today to get from Louth to Lincolnshire up here is maybe about three hours. With him on a horse and cart and pony and trap, it'd be sort of probably 3 days. So it didn't come on a very regular basis. But he had an assistant called Nicholas Brown, and he came.
Due to rising costs, Outram had to abandon building extra work faces on the tunnel, and he instead focused on boring out from both ends, which is quite uncommon in tunnel construction. Normally you drop shafts and you dig out from those shafts in both directions, and you drop shafts all along the length. So he didn't do this, and he dug from each end. It got to the point now that in September 1797, Outram advised the committee that Thomas Lee, the contractor, had made large losses as a result of the difficulties, and he could not complete the contract. So he was awarded more money for timber and an increased rate per yard for the completion of the tunnel. But this just didn't work out, and in 1801 Outram resigned after the work had stopped for quite a long period of time, and Brown was also dismissed. So by 1806, desperately short of money, the Canal Company obtained a new Act of Parliament to raise additional finances and allow for extra toll for using the tunnel. This meant that more money could be raised over a longer period of time and pay this off so people could earn money from it. So when Benjamin Outram left this project, they got in Thomas Talford. Now he wasn't here to actually manage the project, but he was here in an advisory role, and he sorted out a lot of the issues that plagued this tunnel. There were issues with it being straight and various other things that he sorted out, and he saw this tunnel over the line. Now he has projects all over the country, in England and in Wales, that are just absolutely mind-blowing for the time. He really was a canal legend. When Nicholas Brown surveyed the route, they only thought they were going to hit gritstone and shell, and they had a plan for the building. So what you're going to see as we go through here is some of this is brick, some of it is more of this kind of stone, and other methods will happen as we go through, as well as some more updated versions as things were repaired.
If you look above me now, we're just coming to what's called one of our railway bridges. You'll see it in a moment when we go past it, you'll see plenty of these all the way down. You'll see it now above. And these are used by Network Rail. Because the live railway tunnel is now on the right hand side as we're looking forward, what they do, they drive down, they disused 2 railway tunnels on the left hand side as we're looking forward, and then they cross over on these bridges, and basically that's how they actually access
the line on the right hand side, the line. Because here at Standedge, we've got 4 tunnels. We have 2 disused railway tunnels on the left, we have our tunnel in the middle, and then the light railway tunnel is now on the right hand side. So that's why you'll see those bridges going across. So yeah, so this section is what we call the Jack Arch section. Because what it was, when the tunnel was first constructed, it was actually self-supporting. It held itself up. But what happened was, when the railways came, they actually were blasting the way through 30, 40 foot away on our left hand side, and there was a danger that the tunnel may collapse. So that's why as we go through the tunnel, you'll see you'll have arches, you'll have some stonework, you'll have brickwork, and you'll actually have spray concrete as well. Okay, so these are actually put in to support the roof. Now then, why the gaps in between? Well, the brick that's used here, it's a special brick, it's called the Staffordshire Blue. Basically, it would have been made in the potteries, and then it would have been sailed up by barge, and then it would actually been put in. And actually, it's a special brick. As you drive around the country, you might see some big railway arches, and it's got a blue haze with them. And basically, what that is, that's actually the brick itself. It's got that blue haze because they will not allow water to come through. So that's why you've actually got the gaps in between, like we've got just coming up here, to let the water come through.
So all above us there's water pouring through. Obviously we're in a massive hill here. So at points where we have gaps in these bricks, that's designed for that to water through. That's not bad for filling the canal actually. It's not so good in the railway tunnels to the side, which is why when we come down through here, you'll see lots of alleys, just like this one up here. And they were there, you can see water running down the side through there. And that's draining the railway tunnels. Now when they were building the canal tunnels, it was a problem. You can see different areas. I think this is probably a repair here because it's a much newer brick. So when this canal tunnel was restored, there were several areas where they had to patch up. But look at this, you can see the kinks and the bends in the tunnel as we go down through.
It just catching the side of the tunnel a bit. And the reason for that was that when the navvies are the people who actually dug the tunnel, what they did, if they were actually digging and they found it easier on the left hand side or the right hand side, then they followed that easy seam. And so everything out, as you look down our tunnel now, it's actually not quite straight. And the reason for that is the navvies were actually following the easy seam. So every now and again you'll actually see the boat just catch the side a bit. And then, as I mentioned before about the brickwork, we've just brassed some actually red brick. And then if you look above you now, we're coming out to stone. So it changes as it actually go into the tunnel.
So this is another way through. So what they did here, when there were areas of weakness, they put a mesh all across the tunnel and they put this spray concrete on. And there's areas further down we're seeing which are absolutely covered with these. But it was a way to reinforce the tunnels, but it did make the tunnels narrower. And then we're obviously back into brickwork now. You can see just how low these boats are to the ceiling here. It really is tight. Now, there are certain limits to come down on this tunnel. Now, when you come down here in your own boat, Canal and RIver Trust, who operate this canal tunnel, will measure you, and they've got various tools to make sure you won't hit and scrape as you come down through. Normally when you go through a tunnel, you can see the light at the end of the tunnel. You can't see it here because of all the bends that happen in this tunnel. And we're coming into the first real bit now of just plain rock. Now when this canal tunnel was built, it would have largely been like this, and it was repaired and brick put in places where it was weaker.
Addict is a Latin name for entrance, I believe. What happens is, we're just coming to this addict here now. Years ago, before we had this communication system, what would happen is on a private post, when they came through, they would actually stop at the addict, and then they would climb up above, and there's a communication box there where they'd have to put the ultimate method of phoning in the bridge, using the old telephone system.
So this is our first edit, and we've got John here waiting for us now, so he's checking over everybody, making sure everybody's coming through and safe. Not as important now with the system up above, but he is still checking for the canoes and stuff as well. And if you look through here, you can see to what is the railway tunnels up above. You can still see the original marks in this roof here. So what they would do is every 2 people drilling through, they one person would have like a massive drill piece, and they would hold it on their shoulder, and they would twist it as someone else behind them was banging it into place. And when they had that hole through, they would then put some explosives into it and blow. They'd all run away, obviously, and then they would blow that section out. But this is very cool. This is pretty much how it would have looked when it was first built. What you can see on the side here, like you see these bolts through with these plates on, and that was when it was restored. They had to assess the whole tunnel, and they actually drilled into areas where they expected there to be problems with falls in the future. And they put these bolts in there. You put a chemical resin in, which attaches itself to the stone behind it, and that stops the face from falling off. So you can see the water coming across here in little waterfalls. And that'd be the drainage from the railway tunnels coming through. So we've got 2 tunnels on the left and 1 tunnel on the right. It took 2,500 navvies to dig through this tunnel. Around 50 of them unfortunately lost their lives, which was very commonplace in those days. It wasn't health and safety that we have now. Even coming through here with the Canal and RIver Trust, I've got to wear a hard hat just in case anything falls from the ceiling. But in those days, they were blasting, they were digging, they were drilling, obviously with handheld drills. But there was so much risk involved in the construction of this that many people unfortunately lost their lives. So between Oakland and 1840, averaged 40 boats through this tunnel, and they didn't have the luxury of a motor behind us pushing us along. It was all legged through, and legging, you would have a plank going across the front of the boat, and you would lie down and you would walk your way through, sometimes from the top. And it was really hard work. It could take 3 hours to do a journey on a full load, and they were only paid £1 and 6p to do it. Can you imagine that as a job, going through this tunnel all day, walking your way through, carrying a load? It must have been absolutely excruciating on your back. So you can hear him talking now. That's due to this communication system here. And that runs through on those cables. And inside here, you can see it's quite lit up, this one. There's a bunch of control boxes in there, and that's how all the communication goes down. It's much better than the old system, where they drive a vehicle down and follow you down through the disused tunnels. You can see this bit now, there's quite a few bumps, and we're probably going to hit it now. You can see the scrape on that side there. Oh, he's missed it. What's happening there is because of all of this spraycrete that's been put on the sides, it's narrowed the tunnel quite a bit. So it's actually really hard to navigate through this section. You can bring your own boat through this section these days, even though it's under its own power, and the chances are you end up with paint off your gunnels and stuff where you scrape through. And in the railway tunnels on the side, when they were running steam, they had like water troughs running down the side of the rails, and this was the only flat point on the railways, and they had the fireman in the tender used to have like a little scoop that used to go down into it. He used to pick water up as they were travelling through the tunnel and feed that into the tender. Nowadays, with diesel and electric locomotives, they obviously don't need any of that, but it is a good way to drain the water out of the tunnels, and any excess comes down into here. So we're about halfway through in the tunnel now. We've been down here about an hour, so we've got about an hour to go. This area is proper kinky, it's bendy all the way, and that's because when they joined up those 2 sections and they realised when Thomas Telford carried on with the construction that they had actually dug at different angles, they had to straighten it up. So there's a bit of like an S-bend in this bit here. You can see how cool this is above as well. So these are the strengthening arches that we spoke about. So what is it, just that one there?
Yeah, only touch.
I feel like I'm going to crash into that side. That is turning this way, isn't it? Ah! It's actually hard because you try and correct yourself before you've.
Yeah.
First bump. How do you learn how to do this? Is there a way that you kind of see, like a marker that you can use to gauge on a side?
There's the arrow there.
Oh, I see.
That points in the direction that you want to go.
Not that direction.
What makes it really awkward in places is that the really bendy bits, the guy at the back attempts to compensate by not having the back end bash against the wall.
I've got you, yeah.
But that makes the front end steer.
You can feel it then, it comes across. Oh, you hit that there. I'll let you take over now.
Okay.
Because I'm rubbish at that. How often does this trip run then?
Once a month
Yeah.
On one of the days when the canoes are available.
So you can pay to come along on this boat? Yeah.
£50-ish for a one-way trip.
That's a great way to support the Canal and River Trust and to be able to see this yourself. So keep an eye on their website, they do book up quite far in advance where you can come on the boat, and you can also do the canoe as well if you'd rather do that. They have open days where you're allowed to do this. Otherwise, if you are a narrowboater, you can come through this as part of your licence fee. But that money that you will spend, that £50 to come through, gives you, it's about 2.5 hours through, isn't it? And so it's quite, when you consider what you spend on other things, it's actually a bit of a bargain, to be honest with you, to see this, which you'll never get to see otherwise. This is quite a cool contrasting area here, isn't it? You've got all this stonework protruding out here, going into the brickwork there, look, and then you come through to these arches here, which are the strengthening arches. Now you can see where the tunnel kind of goes all over the place a little bit here, and those arches aren't uniform as they come through. They're called jack arches because they basically jack the tunnel up. So we just had a massive breeze through the tunnel, and that is actually part of the design of all of this. So what happens is all that water that runs down through those shafts actually helps pull air down through the tunnel. And what you do get on the side tunnels where the trains go through is it pulls the air really quickly, and that then sucks through air through the tunnel. So it's a really good way of ventilating the tunnel. And what you do get in old tunnels that have been abandoned and never used, they're really dangerous because the carbon dioxide levels build up in them. And you can go down there and you'll just pass out. You won't realise what's going on. So even though this tunnel is being used, you've got the air shafts, you've got the trains pulling the air through, they still do have monitors on board this boat to see if there's a problem. So if they do hit an area where it is bad, we can evacuate the boat through one of the adits. So what we've done now, we've come to a bit of a stop here, and we're doing it for a reason, because we're going to turn the lights off in a second and we're going to see just how dark this tunnel is. And you've got to imagine this is what it would have been like for anybody legging back in the day. They may have had some candlelight going through, but that's about it.
Trip out to control, we're just stopping for a couple of minutes to do our lights out.
So, what we're going to do, just turn the lights out just for a few moments. This is to give you some idea of what it would be like to work down here. And of course, the only illumination you're going to be having are candles. Imagine 15 sets of navvies with candles perched on the heads. You know, the hats like, yeah? So that's how it would be. That's how dark it actually is. Okay? Yeah? Right, so...
Trip out to control, we're setting off again.
Got to be glad for the lights these days, hey? You can't really see on this camera, but we have just got the first signs of light at the end of the tunnel. We've got about a mile left to go.
So right, when we talk about volunteering, how it came about for me was I found out I had time on my hands. I like the canals, and I came up to Standedge to have a look round. I like the setup. I like the people over there, and I started, well, as I still do, on the maintenance side. We're doing the grass cutting, painting, decorating, generally looking after the site. And then basically what happened was they asked me if I'd be interested in working on the boat, and so that's how I started. So the 7 years on, here I am. I'm actually doing these little through trips with people, telling them about the history of the actual tunnel. So that's how I started, and I enjoy it because every trip is completely different. The whole experience of working on the canals is an absolute wonderful. We get looked after very, very well, clothing wise, equipment wise, and especially at Marsden we've got an excellent set of people, and basically it's a one big happy family.
If you're lucky, we'll see a train up there. Oh yeah, that's
So that was one of the adits that go through to the live train tunnel, and you've got to be a bit careful there. It's very, very rare to actually see a train coming through. Even the guys that come through here all the time say they've only ever seen them once or twice. So it took 20 years from 1981 to 2001 to restore this tunnel, and it cost £5 million, which was funded. The estimated cost to build this tunnel was only £174,000. So you can tell the difference in today's money and the old money on the restoration of this. But it was the last major thing to restore the Huddersfield Narrow Canal back to working life, and even as a restoration was a massive undertaking. The canal had struggled with trade because of the Rochdale Canal, which is a broad canal which follows roughly the same routes. Now that had 92 locks over its mileage, which was about 3 blocks per mile, and that was better to go that way because you could take more goods than it was to come through this narrow tunnel. There it is, you can see the light now, you can see that little white dot right in the distance. That is the end of the tunnel. So this is the last of the adits that we're going to go to now. Not all of them are usable now, but they have 8 of them all the way through, which they have this system in. There were 36 in total to start with, and you can see up there it says emergency adit number 8. These were built to stop the railway company having to sink those massive shafts. It's a great news, I'm now on Patreon. Not only are you going to get behind the scenes stuff, you're going to get more footage for things like this really cool Standedge Tunnel I'm in now. You're also going to get all the stuff from Court Exploring all in one place. So I offer 5 tiers on that, and you all get the same content no matter how much you pay. So please do have a look in the links in the description where you can sign up. It'd be great to have you on board. I want to say a huge thank you to the Canal and RIver Trust for allowing me to come along today. It's been a great experience coming through this tunnel, and the history that they give you as they're coming through is fantastic. Now the Canal and RIver Trust really do need your support, so in the description there are links to both their websites where they've got some appeals, as well as you can become a friend of the Canal and RIver Trust. And that helps with the funding issue, because the more money they've got coming in from members and stuff, the less that they need to try and get from the government, who seem very reluctant to give more money at this stage. Now this 250-year-old network costs an absolute fortune to maintain. The Canal and RIver Trust are really struggling to do that, so please do support them in any way you can. Where you've got these bulges coming out of the wall, what happens is the material behind them is often like a clay, and what you find in a lot of canal tunnels is there's full as earth clay, and that is basically cat litter. And what happens is it dries out. If you've got a really long hot dry summer, it will dry out, and a bit of material will fall down into the gap where the clay has left a void. Then what happens when you get a lot of rain, it soaks down through and eventually hits it, and that clay expands again. If you see a cat litter tray that's been used, you'll see that it clumps up and expands, and that's exactly what happens. That then pushes that extra material that's filled that void out and causes the size of the tunnel to collapse.
This is the original entrance to Standedge Tunnel here. Just past there now you can actually see that they've actually formed like square blocks there, yeah? Because this is where the actual extension to the railway is. The railway now is on the right hand side. At this point here, this is where it crosses over. So this section here is actually being added on. So this is a new bit that was actually added on. You can just hear the train going across. Yeah.
So here we are at the end. Just pop out here and have a quick look at the diggle end of the canal. So there was a railway station and stuff here at one point as well. That's all now abandoned. Unfortunately, we won't be able to get on there. That is still property of Network Rail. So I'm with Heidi from Narrowboat Pirate. How cool was that?
Yeah, it was just amazing. But I'll tell you what, it's nice to be back in the warmth of the sun again, isn't it? After
lush, isn't it?
2 hours underground.
Yeah, that gets cold down below. It's about 4 degrees, I think, below there. Yeah. So yeah, but what a fantastic experience!
Yeah,
and
loved it.
You've got to get it. If you can do this, you've got to do it, haven't you?
Yeah, it's just you're going through geology, through history, and then it's just amazing.
You can see Heidi's take on this on her channel, so please do follow the links in the description where you can subscribe. So this is the diggle end, and you can see how small a portal this is, and that's because it was actually not the original portal as we said in the tunnel. This was the extension that the railway company did to take their line across, which is just there, as you can see. But what they used to have on this canal was you can only go one way. Obviously there's no room anywhere to pass in this tunnel, and they didn't have the tow pass and stuff. So there used to be, I think it was a young lad that used to do it, and he would chain across here. It wasn't these gates back then, it was a chain, and he would then allow people through. He would drop the chain, he would go all the way to the other side, which is actually about 5.25 miles rather than the 3.25, 3.5 through the tunnel, because you've got to go up and over. He would get to the other end in time for them to come back through on their boats, and he would drop the chains, let them through, and that would stop people from meeting in the middle, because the last thing you want to do on a massive 3.25 mile long tunnel is meet in the middle. There was, I think it was the Butterley tunnel, where they met in the middle once, and they were down there for days where they were refusing to turn round because that legging was such an effort to get through. So again, a huge thanks to the Canal and RIver Trust for allowing me to do this today. It's been an absolutely fantastic experience. Please do support the Trust wherever you can, and have a great day.